Hey, Shopley team, big apologies, we're late. I do not know what has happened there. Lyndon and myself and Craig were completely in another room presenting, thinking, why is nobody joining us today? So I am so sorry that to be honest, I don't know what room we were in presenting. The joys of technology. I'll give everyone a little bit more time to jump on. We're still waiting for Lyndon, so I am very sorry, but hey, we're all human. We all make mistakes. A big welcome to all of you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it is you're tuning in from. While we're waiting for a few more people, do drop us a comment in the Q&A and let us know where we are tuning in from. All right. Today we have a really exciting strategy session for you. We're going to kick off with some updates and some sharing. So I just wanted to give everyone a few updates, share some stats that are showing some really encouraging signs for where we're moving, and then we've got a presentation about how to use your story as one of your strategies. So, kicking off first, we didn't have our strategy session last week because it was Memorial Day. So I hope you all enjoyed the Memorial Day long weekend and spent some time with your family. But the week before that was we welcomed the Lev community to our strategy sessions for the first time. So I wanted to kick off there and give the Lev people a bit of an update. So for those of you who don't understand too much about Lev or understand what the AI twin concept is, the AI twin concept is where you upload a photo of yourself and you upload a script, and then the AI twin looks like you, talks like you, and you can use that across your socials and you can use that across your YouTube. So for those users, we've made some refinements over the last couple of weeks just to the way the eyes and the mouth move, and it is looking absolutely incredible. If I can give you one hot tip there is just to make sure that when you're uploading a photo, make sure you're not uploading one with a big cheesy grin. Make sure it's more like a passport photo, just a standard photo of you, because then you will see the best results. Now, I also, if we think back to our strategy session 2 weeks ago, we really started to talk about moving from activity into momentum. And I wanted to share some stats that we're seeing, for the Shopley community as a whole. We talked about, the importance of sharing some of those stats that when you have a win, no matter how big or how small it is to get out there and share that win. And we're seeing some of that. I'm seeing some of that I'm friends with on my socials, some of that from you guys. So I wanted to share with you guys some of the stats that we've seen over, the last 2 to 3 weeks. So as you know, we've only reactivated around 3 weeks ago now, and what we have seen is we've seen a 33.3% week on week increase for community partners. So that's the people, joining the platform who want to be part of a community and really build that community. We've also seen a 170% increase on brand partners joining us, which is incredible. At the end of the day, we're a social e-commerce platform, and that's what these brand partners are joining for. They want to work with brands, they want to share links, they want to bring on brands. And we've also seen, on average 2 to 3 vendors joining a week. But one of the points I really want to make is I'd say about 60% of those vendors what they're having to do first is they're having to do their Shopify store. So what that tells us, and with the leaders and the vendors we've been talking to, or merchants, I should say, is somebody has spoken to them about, Shoply and the Shoply concept, and they've loved it so much that they're actually setting up their Shopify store so they can be on Shoply, which is really, encouraging signs. And what that does is really just shows us that, the belief and the trust and the love for the platform is really is really, people are loving it as much as we do. Now, I think we're over our tech hitch. I do see Craig and Lyndon on. So before we kick off into the presentation, a big welcome, guys. I don't know what I've managed to do this morning, but I do apologize to everyone that I've messed it up a little.
All good.
All
All right.
right, so I'm just going to share my screen. And look, one of the big reasons that we wanted to look at this at the moment is a couple of weeks ago, what we done is we done a presentation and we shared some scripts. We had a huge call for people, wanting those scripts, and what we were finding is they're they're using those scripts too heavily. If I'm being honest, it's your story, as the slide says, your story is your strategy. So it is your story. It's not about having a perfect, polished script. We don't want everyone out there sounding like Craig. We don't want everyone out there sounding like Lyndon. We don't want everyone out there sounding like Tito or Rachel or Martin or Janet. We want to be able to tell the Shopley story in many different ways to many different people. So, that's why we wanted to step through this presentation today. So, it's really going to focus on your story being your strategy. I think one of the biggest shifts that we've seen in commerce and in any consumer behavior over the last 5 to 10 years is that people don't actually connect to big businesses or big corporations first anymore. What they actually connect to is people. They connect to people's energy and they connect to their honesty. But most importantly, what they're connecting to is their story. I think for a really long time across several industries, people were taught to, you must memorize a script, you must rehearse this presentation, and no matter what, you must sound professional or polished. But we've really seen a huge change in that over the last 5 to 10 years. Social media has it's changed the way people buy. Communities have changed the way that people trust, and it's all about authenticity now. Authenticity now matters more than perfection ever has. I think in today's space, people are completely overwhelmed with advertisements. Everybody is selling something. Attention spans of consumers and any audience for that fact is shorter, and that means trust is lower. So the question that a lot of people ask is, what is it now that actually cuts through? And we know what is cutting through now is that relatability, it's that honesty, it's those real life lived experiences. And that's the big reason that creators and influencers have become so powerful, because people feel like they know them even when they've never met them before. They're creating that element of trust. And when you think about where we're at, Shopley is built specifically for that kind of world. It's really built for a world where, people trust people more than big corporations, and a world where recommendations and communities matter more than ever. If you think about the last time you bought something because somebody recommended it online, I bet it wasn't because you loved the big long list of features that they advertised. You bought it because you trusted or you felt that connection to the person that was sharing that particular product. And that is storytelling in action. Consumers will always make an emotional decision first, and it's that logic that comes later to justify that particular decision or purchase. I know that happens with my shopping all the time. I see it, I love it, I buy it, and then I think, oh, why did I buy that? And then I spend the time, my logic is justifying the decision that I've made, because nobody wakes up in the morning going, today I'm excited about a compensation plan structure. I'm excited about a software system. They wake up wanting more time, maybe more flexibility, more income, or they really want to build and help people find that purpose in their own life. So when we're out there talking about Shopley, yes, the platform matters. Yes, the model matters. Yes, the structure matters. But what really truly creates that movement is what Shoply means to somebody. Because it's people rarely remember every detail that you've said. You are not going to hang up from this call and go, I remember word for word what Rachel told me. But what they will remember is how you have made them feel off the back of your conversation. One of the many reasons I genuinely love this model is because there isn't just one type of person that fits all. That is one of Shopley's strengths. Traditionally, models always try and force people into a box. It's one size fits all, but Shopley allows people to participate differently. If you look at it from a merchant point of view, a merchant may look at Shopley and think, finally, I've found a platform where people are actively sharing and promoting products. An influencer may really focus on, I want to monetize that, monetize authentically without having to go out there and chase a deal every day. A busy mum or dad really sees that flexibility. They want to be able to build something around a school drop off and create a more, happy work-life balance. None of these stories are wrong, and there is no better or correct Shopley story. The important part is you're not just telling a story, you're telling your story. And one of the reasons people struggle with storytelling is because they tend to overcomplicate it and they try too hard. They think that their story has to be this over dramatized, rags to riches kind of story, where a good story is actually a very, very simple story. And the best way to sit back and look at it is to look at the 5-part story framework. So what we're going to do is look at, what those 5 steps are to be able to craft your story. So number 1 is who you are. So this is where people are going to connect to you personally. They're going to connect to your humanity. They're going to connect to the real you. They don't want to know about your achievements. They don't want to know what your highest rank was. They don't want to know the years of expertise that you have. They want to know about you personally and your life, because people really trust the people that they can relate to, because it's those similarities that really create that connection to you. Number 2 is what your life looked like. So this is all about focusing on the emotional context. You really want to focus on helping people understand, where you were mentally, what you may have felt like you were missing, what frustrations existed in your life. And it may be things like, I was working 20 hours a day and I was burnt out. I had a lack of time freedom. I had a lot of financial pressure. It isn't about creating that negativity and, trying to create a over dramatized story. It's all about creating that honesty to create that trust. So number 3 is, what were you looking for? And I think this is key, because people, when you're creating a story, really need to understand your motivation. So it's not about, I joined Shopley because it's great. It's a, why? What were you looking for at that point in your life? So it was, I was looking for something flexible, or, I wanted to help people find their real purpose, or, I wanted an additional income stream without having to sacrifice my family time. That really creates relatability, because most of us out there are all searching for something more. So number 4 is what you found. And this is where Shopley is going to enter naturally for you. Here is not where you want to overcomplicate it. You don't want to focus on, feature heavy information. You want to focus on what resonated with you emotionally. So whether it's that community, whether it's the flexible, whether it's, a modern model that you can use, or whether it's that you have the ability to get out there and build this authentically. But it's, number 5 is what you see for the future. And now this is where you focus on the vision. It's not about the hype. It's not about creating promises that you can't stick to. It's not about creating income claims that are incorrect. It is about creating that possibility. People are naturally attracted to people who have a vision. And it's not necessarily because they have all the answers. It's because they have that, belief in exactly where they are headed. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make when, telling their story is they're trying too hard to sound impressive or sound like somebody they're not. I remember the very first time, many, many years ago when I had to step on stage. Oh, I was so nervous. I did not want to do it. I had a headset on, and I was walking up the stairs and I tripped. And I said a four-letter word that starts with SH whilst my microphone was on. So that was my welcome to everybody. But I spent the next 20 minutes on stage trying to pretend that I was Tony Robbins. I was trying to do this presentation that I had been rehearsing for 2 months. And I was up there on stage in my head going, Rachel, you sound terrible. You don't understand what you're talking about. And when you're talking to yourself in your head like that, that's when you forget things, and people today are extremely good at sensing that rehearsed energy, that fake excitement. And I remember coming off, going backstage and going back out into the audience. And there was a lady that came to me and said, you know what, you done really well, but I much liked the Rachel that dropped the four-letter word more than that Rachel that stood on stage trying to pretend that she's somebody that she is not. And, from that point in time, I've always sat back and thought, you know what, I may not be the most polished presenter. I may not be the most relatable person to everybody, but one thing is for damn sure is I will always be me, and that is what you will get. And I think that is just so important, especially in the online AI space today, because it's so easy for people to, go and write a post, or write a presentation that doesn't sound like them. You can tell when something is spewed from an AI platform, and people know that it is fake. So, think about when you've last, sat back and looked at why you actually follow someone online. The people that you're out there following, they're probably not the most polished, amazing presenters, but they are going to be the most relatable. And there is a few presenters out there in this space that, I know people don't like the swear words that they drop, and I know people don't like some of the things that they say, but they are very, very relatable. And that is why people keep following. So the goal is not to sound like, you're a salesperson using your 2010 sales playbook. The goal is to sound like somebody who's genuinely found something that aligns and fits in with their life. As I've mentioned on before, people often think storytelling means standing on stage, long-winded presentations with perfect wording that are read straight from your palm card. But in reality, most influence that you have over an audience is going to happen casually, through a casual conversation, because people don't want to feel like they're pitched to anymore. They want to feel like you understand what they want, what they need. So the key is that you're not trying to convince everyone you walk past or everyone you meet at the store. You're simply sharing your perspective. You're sharing your belief, and you're sharing your experience. One of the best ways to probably look at it is you will go out to a restaurant and you may have eaten the best truffle pasta of your life. The first thing you're going to do when you're talking to a friend or somebody the next day is you're going to share, oh, I went to this amazing pasta restaurant and I had the best truffle pasta. That is storytelling. It doesn't have to be, over exaggerated. You are just sharing your experience. So, the really interesting thing in all of this is most people already have a story, but what they haven't done is they haven't spent time to sit back and reflect on, how to create that story, how to bring it to life, or what that story is. So there's some questions that we can go through further than the 5-step process to really help you dig deeper and understand, that how to bring your story to life. But the key here is storytelling will always start with self-awareness. So when you're looking at these questions, you have to think about them emotionally and relate them to you. Don't look at them technically and, think about when I'm talking to people, what is going to get the best results? We don't want the best results. We want your story. We want you to dig deep emotionally on these questions. So, question number one, why did Shopley stand out? It may have been, it stood out to you because you feel like you wanted to be part of a community, or you really understood the vision resonated with you, or you're an overworked, exhausted corporate executive who wanted a bit more work-life balance. Make sure that you're looking at this from an emotional point of view. What were you missing before? You may have been missing that time freedom. You never had time to take the kids to the park. You never had time to create a sense of belonging for yourself. You never had time to sit down and look at that, creating some extra income for the family. What excites you most? What kind of lifestyle, are you looking for? What problem does Shopley solve for you? And why now? Why now in this part of your life are you looking for this? For this particular opportunity. So when you're sitting down and looking at these questions, simplicity and honesty is going to be absolute key here, because as I mentioned before, most people think that they need this huge, extraordinary story that, I was sleeping on the streets and then I found this particular company and now I'm here. When in fact, it's the ordinary stories that people often relate to much more than those big extraordinary stories. Now, one of the key points to remember is that the power of Shopley is not that everybody is out there telling the same story. As I mentioned, we don't want everyone out there telling the same story. The power is that different stories can all exist under the Shopley vision, and that is a really powerful position to be in. So this is where I wanted to bring in a little bit from Craig and Lyndon. And Lyndon, I think I can see your camera on there, so I'm going to throw to you first. But I know between you and Craig, you guys have been out there having many discussions with many different leaders, vendors, etc. So I wanted to, just get you to share some of the stories you're hearing, how you've crafted your story over the years, and maybe give some top tips on how you've gone about building your Shopley story.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, that was really valuable. Being authentic and relatable and believable is absolutely paramount. That's what people want these days, a bit of reality. Guys, I wanted to really just pass on a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of a different perspective, and it may get you to actually look at how you're prospecting, how you're talking to people about Shopley, and whether maybe you need to do things a little bit different. Maybe whether you need to look at the variety of people that you're communicating with, to get a better result. I can remember in my career with the network marketing company that I joined back in 2011, that I approached a very big networker that I tried to enroll and work with for probably 15 years. And it just never happened. Anyway, with my previous network company, I actually had a little bit of success. She was curious as to what I was doing. I made a trip to Sydney to meet with her, and she wanted to introduce me to her top leaders. There was going to be a room packed full of her best people. And so that's what my expectation was. When I actually arrived in Sydney and went to this meeting, it was a room of around 30 people, but they weren't really her top leaders. It was really a motley crew of probably what I would call her graveyard leaders. So these were people that she'd tried to work with over the years, but they'd never got anywhere in her business. And she was basically just setting me a test. And what that test was to see if her least valuable leaders could actually be successful and actually be excited by the opportunity that I was presenting. This was her test. Anyway, what happened out of that meeting was that it was a success. This leader did come on board and join me, and one person in that room ended up bringing in around 150,000 people. into this network. So the point that I'm making is that sometimes you have to look at the lowest common denominator to actually see if an opportunity has that broader appeal. Now, I had a bit of an interesting experience during the week that I want to share with you, which is different but similar to the story that I just shared. And it was where I reconnected with a girl that I'd fallen out of connection with for probably 7 years. She was part of my previous network company for a very fleeting period of time. She came to a number of meetings, badly wanted to do the business and get involved. She was an ex-athlete but worked as a police officer. And no matter how hard she tried, and even with some guidance and mentorship, it just wasn't for her. She couldn't make it work, and we kind of fell out of contact. And a few weeks ago, I actually saw that she had moved, and she was living actually not too far from where I live. I reconnected with her because her social media presence, she'd kind of accelerated on social media, sharing who she was and how she had developed. And she was now very, very heavily involved in surfing. She was not only a competitive surfer herself, she was very big and involved in videography and photography. And I reached out and we reconnected, and I found out that, her life since I had been involved with her 10 years ago had really gone into a terrible state of chaos. She started a family, had a terrible relationship breakup, a severe health issue that almost, cost her life. Her story was really one of overcoming a lot of challenges. Anyway, she asked me what I was up to. So I've obviously shared with her Shoply, what we're doing, what the whole concept was. And she just asked like a machine gun, so many different questions, because for her, she found it incredibly interesting, but it also kind of fitted into her wheelhouse a little bit. She was actually a micro influencer. She was sharing and promoting a few brands. She wasn't being paid. She was just really given product, to do so. And she ended up enrolling with Shoply 3 days ago. And within that period has basically referred 3 very high quality vendors on board. So she not only became a brand partner, but also had brought on board 3 vendors. Now, what does this whole sort of long-winded story really mean? Just think about how you're prospecting and who you're reaching out to. Don't fall into the trap that you have to prioritize talking to what some people consider are their most valuable assets. Who are the people that have been very successful in team building or the network industry before, and start focusing on those people. Now, sure, you can certainly prospect them, you can certainly prospect everyone, but do understand that a lot of network marketers are kind of trapped in familiarity. They may not have a home at the moment, but they're trying to find a home that is similar to where they've been before or where they've achieved their greatest success in the industry. But in reality, longevity, not only in this industry, but also in life, is dependent on your ability to embrace change and how you can adapt, how you can pivot. And obviously, I don't really need to sell anyone on the merits on this Zoom of Shoply, but we are pivoting. We're in a position where we're combining a whole lot of different sales disciplines, whether it be someone who's involved in direct sales or whether it's someone who is involved in influencing or team building as a networker and connecting them with vendors. We're creating a new ecosystem where everyone can exist and flourish in the skill set and where they feel most comfortable, where people don't have to change. So the hardest thing is that if you're a networker who doesn't want to change, you're really going to find Shopley is going to be a real struggle for you. Because one thing that I know, the best opportunities are the ones that have the largest mass market appeal. Most network companies are niche. You're out there trying to find people that connect with a story and a range of products that maybe connect in their wheelhouse. Whereas what we have here is something that connects with really everyone. Because even if they're not going to build as an entrepreneur, as a brand partner, or as a community partner, they can still be a rewards customer. Everyone can be involved in whatever way that suits them the best. So just think about that when you're prospecting. Potentially, some of the best people that you can bring on board are people that you're connected with that you maybe have falsely anticipated or not even thought about connecting with them with this opportunity. I was challenged years ago by having to share an opportunity with someone's graveyard contacts, people that had never worked out in being successful. And look at what turned out from that. Here I've had a single call with a girl that was never ever successful with me, never ever successful as an entrepreneur. And what she's done in just 3 days has been extraordinary. So really think about that, guys. Maybe rethink about who you're connecting with, who you're talking to, because the potential and the possibilities with Shopley for people that you might think are the most average or worst people in the room could end up being your most extraordinary. So, take a bit of time to think about that, and I hope that helps in your efforts with growing your business.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lyndon. And I think that just reiterates the point that, it's all of those different stories can all exist under the same vision. And that's really what makes Shopley an incredibly powerful opportunity. Now, Craig, I think I see you there. I'm going to throw to you. I know you've been out there, having lots of different discussions with lots of different people. So share some of that with us.
Yeah, Rach. Look, I'm in what you would call hustle mode at the moment, and I feel like my voice is running out every day. I've told the story that many times over the last 10 days, and look, getting really a lot of great response and a lot of people interested in what we're doing here. And I was just looking at Rodney's question and looked at his website there, and happy to connect with you, Rodney, if you want to reach out to me to jump on a call. So thanks for your question in the question box. Basically, the one thing that I will add in regards to helping people develop their pitch, the story component, in my view, there's a number of stories you need to be able to tell to build out a vision-based story. Now, one of the stories is understanding the landscape. And the landscape story is about trends, what's been happening in the marketplace. And I try to paint this picture when I'm doing the weekly calls on the Wednesday evenings, where I demonstrate that the landscape is in our favor for our concept. And in the landscape, we have case studies, big tech giants trying to pivot into this high growth industry of social and live commerce. I say that data supports that we have moved into a new trend of this social commerce and live commerce high growth industry, and I used the Accenture report for that, which talks about the $1.2 trillion shift, and also thought leadership. there's a lot of people, whether it's a Branson or whoever out there, they're all talking about this shift into A, social commerce, live commerce, B, influencer marketing, C, the trends of, what's happening with Shopify and e-commerce. And then I paint the picture of my business decision to partner with a tech company like this because this is where the world is heading. So you need to be able to package up the story of what's happening out there in the marketplace. So you provide that level of context for that. Story number two is being able to showcase the Shopley story. And I've said this before, this is really an important one because many of the conversations I've had over the last 2 weeks, like most people, a lot of people out there have a perception that Shopley's been in the marketplace for a long period of time, blah, 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 blah. And, I just brought on actually a full-time professional networker last week, and my conversations with her were literally around the fact that she had a perception that Shopley had already been, and it's what's new about it, what's fresh. And I had to take her on a journey of the Shopley story. And for me, I look at this Shopley story like every tech company, like the original Amazon story, the original Apple story. There's a lot of companies out there that don't just go from zero to hero day one, especially in tech. They're even more, got more layers to their growth and their story, which is why most tech companies launch in a beta tech model. So I set the record straight. I said, hey, look, let me just provide some context. Let's just fill you out on the journey to date. We launched what I believe was the best big idea that's ever been released in the history of commerce, combining multiple methods of commerce in the one ecosystem. Now, we launched our original technology as a beta tech company, and it was our technology. We launched that. We attracted more interest than I've ever seen in my life to validate our big idea. And that's what most businesses or products or services will refer to as MVP. We tested that. We had some great fortune 90 days into the journey to build new technology, but it integrated with arguably the biggest and best e-commerce tech giant in the world, which was Shopify. So at that point of the story, I'm saying we've tested the product got a big tick. We got an incredible opportunity, and there was a fork in the road moment. And the fork in the road moment was we'd already had 150 brands and 4,000 plus influencers join our tech platform. This new pathway would require us to spend another 10 to 12 months building new tech. But the new tech was to solve a massive problem. It was going to fast track our journey to a truly global marketplace. It allowed us to have the partnership and the association with one of the biggest tech giants of all time. And we were instantly able to scale into 175 markets. Day one, a store was able to come on in 5 minutes as opposed to 5 weeks. And this was going to be a massive solution. The downside through that period was the time to rebuild the tech. So we were in a crossroads business decision. Some people along our journey would chose, I'm going to sit back, wait and see. Some people were really keen to wait and see because they could see that this was going to be a pioneering and revolutionary concept. And we did launch our tech the last week of October. Instantly, we got around 100 brands and 8 to 10,000 shareable links on our marketplace. And then we made the final piece of the puzzle. So we've got the big idea tick. We've got the technology tick. Now it was to find a scalable model that could go to all 100 175 countries in the world. And we made that decision to reduce licenses from eight to two. We made some tweaks to the commission model, which we felt was going to put more money in the pockets of people. And the final thing was we needed it to be at a price point that everyone around the world could participate because we were just not seeing people in many countries, in what I would call developing countries, part with the $800 license fee. So I've packaged that entire story up as a very compelling offer. And the compelling offer is A, the big idea tick, B, the technology play tick, C, the final piece of the puzzle is taking it to the world. Now we're 10 days or 2 weeks this Friday into that journey, and now we're onboarding brands. We're onboarding brand partners from other countries in the world. I've just bringing on this week a lady from Zambia that's got 2 e-commerce stores. We had a conversation. We went on to ChatGPT and I said, hey, there's 300 live e-commerce stores in Zambia that are on Shopify. We can create an opportunity here that's local for your community. They can get behind your brand or product, but we can build a micro marketplace for the entrepreneurial types that live in that country. And guess what? How many countries are in the African region? Let's go and have a look at how many stores in Botswana, how many stores in Kenya, how many stores in South Africa. Along that research rabbit hole, we found there's 27 live active stores in South Africa alone. So the point I try and make with this Shoply story, you can position it the way I just did as an exciting pathway to the future. I just wanted to present that. So we have the industry story. You need to be able to explain the Shoply story, and then it's your own story. And I won't really add any more to that. But what I will say is there's no harm in using AI to test your story. So, I will talk to my AI and I'll say, hey, I'll talk to it for 20 minutes and say, this is my journey. This is what I've done. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. These are my values. This is what I want to try and achieve. And I'll get that to help recraft and reprompt and give me some ideas to how to package it and present my story. So there's no harm in spending 20 minutes saying, this is my entire journey. Can you help me repackage and reposition that as a compelling story to attract people? Most importantly, your story's biggest weaponry is to establish common ground with the person that you're speaking with. Lyndon speaking to that lady he hadn't spoken to for 10 years, there was a relationship there, and timing was a major part of the reconnection story. And the common ground was we had a platform that was perfect for the way that she wanted to do commerce and how she was doing it anyway. So, if this is recorded, you can go back to take a few notes on how I put forward the Shoply story in a shining light. But even, go to a couple of my last showcase sessions or get onto them and learn, because I actually do explain the Shoply journey in a positive light on that presentation. So that's what I'll add. I'm very excited about where we're heading, what we're doing. Some of the conversations that I'm having are really validate to me, nearly in a way that I want to enroll all over again. Now I can see what the original big idea was back in August 2024, when I did say to people, this is the best thing I've ever seen in online, in home business. My biggest question is, can you actually pull it off? Now I'm like going, we're live. We have absolutely everything lined up. I've just got to get to work now and have those conversations and keep on presenting. So, yeah, that's what I'll add to that. There's some exciting vendors coming on board and some exciting things happening in the field as well. Actually,
Yeah,
I want to say one thing Rachel, myself, and Lyndon did jump on a call with a what you would call a career affiliate marketer the other day, and he referred to what we're doing here as a complete revolution of the affiliate marketing world. And he said, if you guys were sponsors of the brand Affiliate World, which is in Southeast Asia, you would nearly have a clean sweep of every affiliate joining up to that because we solve their problem with our technology. And after it, I did have a chat to him after it, and he said, this is like a full mindset shift of how you would do affiliate marketing. That's how exciting. He's actually more exciting about what he sees in what we have than what I see in what we have, to be honest, because he spent 30 years doing affiliate marketing. So, and he's probably the third, what you would call professional affiliate marketer that's never built a networking team before, say that type of thing to me. So that really lights me up to see that that segment of the world of commerce is really excited about what we have.
Absolutely, Craig. And, so many amazing points there. I love the point you touched on about it's okay to run your story through AI. Yes, it absolutely is. But, do not spew to people what AI tells you. I had to share something that I had to have a giggle at the other day. I got an email from somebody, and you could actually tell that it was AI that had created it because they left in there the little bits that says insert company name here, and it said hi, first name Rachel. And I had to giggle because I'm like, I understand AI is absolutely incredible. I use it every hour of every day, but you do still have to look at some of those pieces, and they had just forgotten to move, first name and some of the crucial parts of that email. So, it is an absolutely amazing tool, but, always, try and personalize it, from that point. Some incredible lessons there from Craig. And again, he is exactly right. The snapshots that are on every Wednesday night, Thursday in Australia. It really shows just, the Shopley story, and how to package it. And then, that is the way Craig tells that story. You can either bring people to that snapshot to understand that, or you can adapt that to the way you would tell a story. So thank you guys, for sharing your words of wisdom tonight. And I think, if there is one thing that I hope you all leave with tonight, it's, to never underestimate the impact your story can have, because the things that feel, ordinary or everyday to you are often, the extraordinary to somebody else. Maybe the challenges you've overcome, the resilience, the lessons you've learned, the decisions you've made along the way. Those things are, what's shaped who you are and what we are here at Shopley. And they may be exactly what it is that somebody needs to hear right now. So as we're all out there, continuing to build this community together, every one of us will tell the Shopley story differently. And that is exactly how it should be, because people don't need a more scripted, robotic message. They need real people sharing their real life, experiences. I know that the future here is not going to be built on, robots who all sound the same. It is going to be built by people who are brave enough to get out there, and sound like themselves and really, focus. That is going to be where the power of storytelling begins, for all of us. So, I hope that, you take something from this tonight in a way to really help you craft your story, take in, the little bits from Craig, the little bits from Lyndon. We will make sure that we email this recording out. We will get it all out to you. Once again, my big apologies. I see a lot of people in the comments saying, I thought you forgot about us. Absolutely not. We didn't forget about you. In all honesty, I don't know what I done, but we were all presenting to no man there for a little while. So please accept my apologies. Thank you again for being with us tonight, and we will look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye, guys.